Okay, now we go to the portion of our uh, tawag dito. Masasabi nating one of the most important sa operations auditing, which is yung auditing business processes, no? Pero dito, hinati natin siya sa parts 1 and 2. And each part tatagal pa ng 2 weeks kasi sa totoo lang, masyado talaga siyang mahaba. Okay? So, if you will see here, no, based from the book, no, we'll be following the modules, no. Of course, tatakal natin dyan yung procure to pay, order to cash, and record to report, or R2R, O to C, P to P. Okay, so dati kasi, well, sa accounting information system nyo, we have different cycles, di ba? So, we have their revenue cycle, we have the expenditure cycle, and the conversion cycle. And I think we have discussed there yung, uh, tawag dito, yung general ledger system and financial reporting system module, right? Tama ba? So, yun, kasama siya. Okay. So, for the auditing the business processes. So, we're pertaining to, again, O2C, P2P, and R2R, or record to report. So, what are the learning objectives that you'll be learning from here, no? First is to identify the internal controls related to financial reporting, order to cash, and procure to pay business processes. So, this is based from the book. However, I made some revisions, no? May mga dinagdag akong tawag dito, flow chart for you to understand these processes, because some of these processes are not really different from what we know that we have discussed in the accounting information system, such as the revenue, the expenditure cycle, and the GL slash FRS, no? So, ano naman sila, they have a corresponding counterpart, no? For the financial reporting, definitely this is your general ledger system slash financial reporting system. For your order to cash, this is your revenue cycle, while for your procure to pay, this is your expenditure cycle, particularly on the purchasing and cash disbursement. Okay? So in here, we need to recall the fundamental task performed, departments involved, and the documents related in this business processes. So I think with some of the documents, no, I'll be of course mentioning some of the common documents with each of these processes. I think you're familiar with it, no? Yun yung assumption ko. If not, no, you can actually ask me or send me a message kung ano yung mga iba't ibang documents that are related to these processes, no? So, third objective is to determine the risk associated with this process. So, this is the part wherein you know already these processes, but in the operations auditing, we need to know what are the risks associated with these processes. And of course, we need to enumerate the best practices in the aforementioned processes, such as what are the controls that can be, employed by the organization in order to mitigate the risk. Okay. Um, Fifth learning objective is to recommend business process improvement initiatives to bridge the current state of the process to a desired future state. So this is in relation to the last bullet, wherein if you have the best practices and this is the current situation that we have currently, so how can we recommend things na from the current state, it will now go into that best practice or the future state ng ganung process. Okay? Or the desired future state. And the last learning objective is to lay down a simple but comprehensive implementation plan for the recommendations proposed. So, ito, the last two bullet points is actually an application of what we'll learn here in this chapter through the case study that we'll be giving you. So remember that, di ba remember, I have mentioned to you this during the orientation that I'll be giving you, or we, no, Sir Mark and I will give you the case study for each of the business process, and this will be presented by your groups to some of the panel. So, doon natin dapat apply tong tong fifth and sixth bullet. Okay? So, before we start with this process, we need to know what are the hallmarks of good business processes. Of course, there is an advantage of viewing business activity as a number of processes is that it affords a more natural, systems-oriented view by following the business process through its entire lifespan from its inception, from the beginning, di ba, to its ultimate disposition hanggang dulo. Just like with your expenditure cycle wherein it is from procurement until its payment, it's from the inception until its ultimate disposition. So that for in the accounting, no, swerte nyo na naabutan nyo na there's already an established process for each of the cycle. So at least by doing this, no, by knowing the processes, no, it gives you a natural systems oriented view about it, no, kung what are the documents that are involved, who are the departments involved, what are the policies that can be adopted, no, for having a good business practice for this process. Okay, so swerte nyo, no, natutunan nyo na yan sa accounting information system. So through your good foundation from that subject of the business processes, di ba dapat nagamit nyo siya noong auditing applications and cases, right? So dito pagdating with operations auditing, gagamitin ulit natin siya. And this time, we'll be knowing again what are the risk and control, key risk and control issues or even controls that are relevant to these processes. Okay? So, this system view of business processes avoids the more limited perspective which results if if these business activities are viewed only to the extent that they occur within a section of the business such as within a department. So, meaning to say, dapat yung mga processes natin, we shall view it on a bird's view, tama ba? Or in a way na high-level information for you to really appreciate what are the interaction between the departments involving this process, no, not just merely looking into the department itself, no, kasi of course there are some interaction with the other department. So what is the sense of these documents coming from the other department? So magtatanong ka. Okay, to some extent, of course, auditors have always appreciated the idea of natural processes or flows as one definition of audit trail. Of course, with the idea, again, of the natural process flow, dito natin pwedeng mahugot yung mga audit trail. Kasi remember, each of the processes can produce product documents, okay? And it can serve as a turnaround document to serve as a source document to another system. Okay? So this leaves an audit trail, no? If you can recall your accounting information system. So when we say audit trail, it implies the preparation and retention within an organization, number one, for an adequate period, number two, in a reasonable, accessible form, and number three, in enough detail to satisfy us, the auditors, of records which allow each detailed element of any transaction to be tracked from its source through each intermediate stage to its final disposition, or in other words, to its final or product document. Okay? And it's really, the audit trail will really help the auditor to do vouching, to do tracing, no? Meaning from the final document, going to the source document, that is what we call vouching, right? And from the source document, going to the final document, that is tracing. Okay? So, in this, in these topics, no? The remaining topics, we are going to understand the organization as a number of fundamental business processes, each of which is likely to require involvement of several parts of the organization. So here are the following hallmarks of a good business process. So number one, no, for us to say that the business process is a good one, no, it should be designed to meet the objectives which are clear. So meaning the business process that we have set or the organization have set should be aligned with what has been set in the strategic, in their objectives, whether it's strategic, tactical, or operational. Okay, so all are the same. Meaning, of course, if you're going to meet the strategic objective, you must first meet the tactical objective. Before you meet the tactical objectives, you need first to what? Of course, to meet also the um, operational objective. So dapat same with the business processes, dapat that is aligned with those objectives. Okay? So the next hallmark, no, it has in regard to competitive issues. Okay? So meaning of course we want to have uh our processes to be good. Pero of course, if we have this kind of objective na we are very competitive, there should be a good balance between being competitive and being, control compliant. Meron kasi talagang trade-off pagdating sa controls, no? Of course, may mga objectives yung organization, for it to be easily, to be achievable, easily to be achievable, no? We can implement process, pero make sure that these processes are not really compromising the controls in place. Okay, baka kasi mamaya kailangan ng collusion tuloy for us to meet the objectives of the organization. Okay, so minsan may mga ganon. So there should be a good balance, no? Number three, performance can be and is measured. So please take note that process should have a quantitative factor for us to measure the performance of that department, no? Kasi remember, it is required in the performance management na we need to check if the certain department or unit is really contributing to the overall objectives of the organization. So remember, lagi yan naboboil down to the overall objectives of the organization. Okay? So for the fourth one, no, unsatisfactory performance is rectified. When we say rectified, we need to correct if there are any deviations by comparing the actual performance versus the expected or the standard performance. Okay, so kunwari, for budgeting, di ba, for standard costing, remember that we are comparing the actual cost versus the standard or the budgeted cost. And if there are any discrepancies, meaning there are variances, and lalo na if that variance is material, or ibig sabihin, significant, no, there should be a mechanism in the management that it should be corrected. And how it can be corrected? It can be reflected in, updating the policies and procedures. Okay, mga tipong ganun. Okay? For the fifth one, no, activities are completed in a timely way. So just like with objectives that it is smart, no, it should be time bounded. So meaning you should not plan activities that are not that has no timeline. So for us to help the organization, dapat there is kahit paano a reasonable pressure for the process owner to really complete these activities within a reasonable time frame. Okay? Okay. For the sixth one, no, processes are cost effective. So remember that we need to implement, no, or design and implement a process that considers the cost benefit analysis, meaning that the cost should not exceed the benefit. Gusto natin syempre na maggawa tayo ng business process na maganda, pero baka may ang mahal naman para ma-maintain natin or ma-sustain. If there are any other alternatives na more cost effective or that is more efficient, no? Okay? Cost effective is also efficient, no? Meaning you are using less resources to give you maximum or maximum output. Okay? So dapat laging yung take into consideration the cost benefit analysis. Okay? And okay, for the seventh, no, controls are preventive rather than merely permissive. What we meant to what are we saying here is that as much as possible, no, meron tayong sinasabing kasabihan na prevention is better than cure. Okay, so in here the control should be more preventive, no? At least at the very start, no, we are deterring the bad event or the risk from happening. Kasi if you have a stringent preventive controls, the most likely the next controls that will have a barrier against this risk, such as the detection and the control the detective and the corrective controls, most likely konti na lang yung um, makikita nilang hindi nasala ng preventive. At least at the first level of defense, which is the preventive control, nasala na. Siyempre, hindi naman guaranteed, 100% guaranteed yun or absolute. May lulusot at lulusot pa rin doon sa preventive control. And that's the function of the detective and the corrective control. When we say rather than merely permissive, meaning the controls that we should set is just not merely for compliance. Okay? But as much as possible, we want our preventive controls to be more proactive. So, kunwari, any risks that are not yet happening in the organization, it was already considered in the controls that are in place. So, kunwari, kung sakaling mangyari, at least prepared yung organization. Ay, example natin, si FEU. Ewan ko ha, sana mag-agree kayo. Okay? Or you can disagree to joke lang. Parang naging political. Pero, kunwari, di ba, nag-pandemic tayo nung March. And you know that even before the pandemic happened, no, we have the LMS or the learning management system that we can, be an alternative in case if there are any disruptions in the classes. Let's say, for example, before, di ba, kapag, kunwari, biglang umulan, tuloy pa rin naman yung klase through the platform of the LMS, no? Kung walang kung may kailangan gawin, no? Let's say, for example, may quiz na nakaschedule and time is of essence, kailangan nang mabigay, we can have it scheduled in LMS, no? And pwedeng gawin in your most convenient time, no? And through the preparation na meron tayo na ni FEU, no? Nagkaroon tayo naman ng though it's not really an easy task, no? There was a transition from the traditional face-to-face to using the online platform kasi naka-ready na siya. So, kahit pa paano nakatulong siya, no? Meaning, we have already those preventive controls in place in case of any, disruption. So, yun, talagang na-disrupt yung classes natin ng face-to-face and we move to online. So, nakatulong si LMS. It's a preventive control for us. Okay? So, next hallmark of good business process is that as few movements or stages as possible. So, meaning, dapat, if you want your process to be simple, there should only be minimal movement. So, you don't want your processes to be very complicated, very sophisticated. If you can have your process na simple lang. Let's say, for example, gusto mo 3 approvals yung kailangan for approving certain documents, no? Or authorizing some documents. Why not have it, signed by one person only who has the authorization? So, ayun, at least isang movement lang yun, no? We want our process to be more cost-effective and we can do that through, minimizing the movement. So, di ba remember the 8 areas of waste, di ba? Okay, yung excess motion. So, ito yun, okay? Next, the 9th one, no? Unnecessary steps have been eliminated. So, in connection with the last one, ito, dapat, if there are any unnecessary motion or movement, we can eliminate those. Lalo na kung hindi naman siya nag-a-add ng value. Okay? So, the 10th one, no, nothing is done which is unimportant to the achievement of objective. Okay? So, make sure, parang parehas lang siya with the 9. So, ibig lang natin sabihin sa 10, no, dapat wala tayong gagawin na it doesn't give any value nga to the achievement of the objective, then better to have it eliminated. Okay, so in other words also, we are making sense yung mga necessary steps in the process or procedures in the steps na dapat it will really help us, no? And it is important in achieving the objectives. Okay? The 11th one, it should have proper authorization. So, remember, to have a good control, it should have proper authorization, given that we have segregation of duties. If there are any authorization, there would be no control. Okay? Meaning, any processes, kahit meron tayong na set na policy and procedure, kung walang authorization, kahit sino pwedeng mag-authorize ng transaction, and that is very, very risky to the organization. Okay? For the 11th one, no, controls position as early as possible in the processes. So meaning, lalo na kung bago yung processes, no, you might want to help, the management might want to consider the assistance of the internal auditors. Remember, yung internal auditors tayo we are the experts in the areas of risk and control. So, kung makikita nila yung risk that is, inherent in that process or that is natural to happen in the process, then the internal auditor can implement controls. Ay, mali, no? Hindi pala mag-implement. Remember, we should not, assume management responsibility. We should only assist the organization. So, instead of implementing the controls, what should be done? We should only provide them recommendations. So, what are the best controls that can be placed in that process to address the risks that are present or possibly present to happen in that situation or process, within that process. Okay? And of course, a business process is a good one if it is also documented. So, ito po ulit-ulit ko nang sinasabi, documented. Kailangan codified, kailangan written. Okay? At least if it is documented or written, if the person resign, then there is no proper transition of the job and responsibility. So meaning walang turnover of the jobs or the documents. At least through the document in place, no, the replacement for that resigned employee can just only read those documents, no, of the processes. Okay? So at least it will really help. And isa pa, a good business process should have an audit trail. Remember, dapat for the auditors to do their job, no? And of course, hindi lang kay auditor naman yung audit trail. It will help the management to trace any, anomaly, any errors, or if there are any indicators of fraud, no? The audit trail will really help. Kasi dyan tayo, as auditors and accountants, tayo ay mabusisi sa kaperahan. So what more, mabusisi rin tayo sa proseso. Kaya nga, the accountants are really also a good, good auditors also. And of course, hindi naman kailangan accountant ka, no? If you are an accountant, that's an advantage, no? If you are not an accountant, of course, there are internal auditors na they are engineers, they are mathematicians, they are economicians. So, dapat they know the concept of audit trail. So, any transaction that happened or transpired, it should generate an audit trail for the management to review. And of course, for the internal auditors to review as well. Okay? So, for another hallmark of good business processes, no, there should be should be right people doing the right job. So meaning if a certain process requires the expertise of an IT expert, then you should hire a people who has a good foundation or who is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Information Technology. Okay, so ganun lang, no? If you see to it that the task or the work or the job and responsibility is related to this areas of expertise, then you should hire people in this area. Okay? So with internal auditor, kahit sino naman pwede, no? The BSA, the BSIA, even economics again, no? Pwede naman. Basta they know the concept of audit and assurance. Okay? And very flexible naman kasi ang audit, no? There were some of my colleagues who are graduates in economics, meron nga management engineering. So lahat ng area maganda kung meron ng internal audit. I mean, it's a multi faceted discipline kasi naman talaga, lalo na if the company is not really confined with it within the products itself, no? Parang of course if they want to have that kind of synergy that the work of two will result into the work of three, no? Hindi pong ganon. we can do it through, yun nga, having um, different people from different discipline na mapunta sa internal audit. Okay? That is in the point of view of internal audit. Now, in the processes, no, kung it requires this specialized work or skills, then of course you will be hiring should be the right people. Those people who has the skills in deploying the required task. Okay? So, second to the last, there should be a room for adaptation. So, meaning, parang there should be not really room for improvement. Of course, if there are any, new processes that can be employed by this, for example, if there are any, kunwari, new machines, new technology, then this process should be adaptable in this kind of situation. Kasi lalo na yung technology, mabilis ang kaniyang progress. So dapat that process should have a room for adoption. For adaptation. Okay? Mali ako sa adoption. Okay. Now, for the last one, it should also define risk within the process itself. So every process may risk involved. Walang process na walang risk. Lahat meron. Kahit gaano pa kaganda yung controls, 'di ba, may tinatawag tayong residual risk. It is the remaining risk after the controls are considered. Okay? And other mechanisms are involved. Merong matitira at matitira. Okay? At least if you define your risk, you can now do, identifying what controls should be in place, what controls that can be recommended by the internal auditors, mga tipong ganon. Okay? So these are all your hallmarks of good business processes. So in general yan. Okay? So now we go to the business processes, no? So tawag dito, in this chapter or in this topic actually, we consider the financial and accounting aspects of an organization. So first, we will consider the systems and functions that are likely to constitute this area of activity, which I have mentioned already, no? May mga areas of activity tayo. Secondly, we shall examine each of these component function and highlight the relative control objectives, if applicable, and risk and control issues arising from the various activities. So ano ba yung mga usually, yung mga process na involved, no, sa ating finance and accounting module. So, kasi ngayon, no, yung accounting information system na natutunan nyo, no, it's only a portion of the enterprise resource planning. Okay? And yung natutunan natin, iba pa yung tawag natin, revenue cycle, expenditure cycle, conversion cycle. And meron nga dun, di ba, general ledger system and financial reporting system. Now, the common term used, no, for this cycle is what we call P2P, O2C, R2R. Okay? When you say P2P, it's procure to pay. Again, it's your expenditure cycle. For the order to cash, no, it's your tawag dito, revenue cycle. While for your record to report, this includes your general ledger system and financial reporting system. Okay? So, ito na yung system na ginagamit natin. The concept or the process within this P2P, O2C, R2R are still the same doon sa mga cycles na alam natin. Okay? So, may i-explain ko in detail kung ano yung mga processes within this, each of this, tawag dito, module, no? Or subcomponent of this finance and accounting module. Usually, naririnig natin to sa, sa mga ERP such as SAP, Oracle. Okay? So, I will not go through through these charts, no? Meron kasi akong flowchart na susundan natin. Okay? So, before I proceed with the first, business process, I would like to outline the finance and accounting process para at least you have an overview. So, dito, inayos ko siya. Okay? So, kasi ang nasa libro, inuna natin tong R2R, tapos I think order to cash and then procure to pay. So, binaligtad ko mas logical ang pagkakasunod dito. So, first, we need, of course, before we can sell, di ba? We need first to procure the materials needed. And then, once you have the procurement of the material, no, we can now wait for the materials, no, and kapag dumating na sa atin, we can process it, no, or manufacture it, and eventually we can sell it to the customer. And all of this transaction has an effect to the ledger. Okay? Actually, ang una talaga magti-trigger is what? The order of the customer sa revenue to collect. Pero that's only a portion, no, na before we can get the orders of the customer, we need to check kung may mga inventory. I mean, we have an available inventory to fulfill the order of the customer. So, dito yan papasok. And then, babalik ulit dito kapag nabenta na natin sa customer. Tama? So, lahat ng mga transactions sa procure to pay, order to cash, has an effect sa ating record to report or basically the general ledger. So, unahin ko yung procure to pay. Your procure to pay, it's your, again, expenditure and disbursement. And we will include topics or subcomponents such as the bidding process, the purchasing, and accounts payable. Okay? And after the P2P, we'll now discuss O2C or order to cash, which includes pricing and discount policies, order processing, and eventually accounts receivable. So, kasama rin, of course, yung yung collection of the cash. Ito, kasama rin yung payment of cash to the supplier. Now, all again of these transactions, except for the bidding and pricing and discount policy, has an effect to the general accounting and finance, or the record to report, or R2R. Okay, kasi remember, all financial transactions, it should be reflected in the financial reporting system. So, ano yung kasama ng natin? Ng general accounting and finance, or R2R, no? It includes the general ledger and the management accounts. Okay? And lastly, financial information and reporting. So, iba na yung term. Kasi 'di ba in accounting information system, it is termed as your general ledger system and what? Financial reporting system. Dito iba na. Okay? So now we go to the first process, or what we call the order to cash process. So in other words, again, ano to? It's your revenue cycle. Okay? So I'll be using the flowchart ng ginamit natin sa accounting information system. So let's have a review. Okay? Kung naalala nyo pa. Okay? So dito si customer, 'di ba? Nag-order. Okay? And then nag-prepare ng manually. The sales department, prepared or generated these copies of documents, no? I think later pa to, no? Okay? So this credit copy of the sales order will be forwarded to the credit to have to perform the credit check, no? So based from the customer order, no, kung pasok sa credit limit yung gustong i-order ng customer, then the credit copy will now be approved by the credit department and it will be filed. Now, the credit copy will be filed in the sales department. Tama? So, ibig sabihin ng file, sinave lang yan. Or in other words, may folder sila, nilagay nila doon. Okay? And then, in here, the copy of the customer order, it will be forwarded to the warehouse and the shipping. No? For the warehouse, gagawin nila, they will pick the goods, no? Kung merong of course check pa nila yan kung merong stocks, no? Of course, kung merong stocks, ipipick yung goods and i-release na yung stocks doon sa shipping. Of course, before they can forward the goods together with the file copy of the customer order na na-approve na rin, they will update their database as to the stock records. Ibig sabihin, they need to reduce the inventory. Tama? And of course, they will be filing a copy of the customer order sa department nila, no? And then yung goods, no, they will forward it to the shipping, and of course they would need to compare the the stocks forwarded to them by the warehouse and the shipping. They will now be comparing also the file copy of the customer order, and if sila ay nagmatch, no, together with the shipping notice, the packing slip na ginawa ni shipping, they will now ginawa ni reconcile. They will now, I mean, if it now ties up, no, yung actual goods versus the customer order, they will now log it in the shipping log, no, yung record ng item. And then of course the copy of the customer order will be filed, and then the goods together with the bill of lading and the packing slip will be forwarded to the carrier. So meaning yung magde-deliver. Okay? Now, for sure, after they have delivered the goods, no, a copy of the shipping notice and the stock release will be forwarded to the billing. Okay? So, dito na mangyayari yung medyo madugong reconciliation. Kasi, of course, the billing department, before they can, record accounts receivable and the sales journal, they should be comparing documents. So, in this case, the shipping department will now provide the shipping notice and the stock release to the billing, and together with other copies of coming from the sales, such as the file copy of the customer order again, the ledger copy, and the invoice, they will reconcile. Okay? And then, update nila yung sales journal to record the sales. Okay? And they will provide copy of the journal voucher to the general ledger team. Okay? So, in here also, they will file a copy again of those documents. Of course, they'll be providing the stock release copy to the inventory control, no, for the inventory subsidiary ledger, and the invoice to the customer, no, for the billing, no. So, magkaiba pa sila, no. Si shipping, finorward niya yung tawag dito, yung goods together with the bill of lading and the packing slip, no. And of course, no, si billing yung bahala sa invoice or the billing statement. Okay? So, of course, there would be a ledger copy of updating the accounts receivable. Okay? And then the next step, for the billing, no, ito, yung kanina, no, parang mas dinetali niya kasi medyo masalimot yung process dito. Dito, di ba, we have a stock release coming from the billing that is forwarded to the inventory control. Now, the inventory control should update the inventory, the subsidiary ledger for the inventory. This is not really, a general ledger. This is a subsidiary ledger kept by the inventory control for the inventory. Remember that we should compare the subsidiary ledger with the general ledger. Okay? Now, of course, in updating the inventory, no, the inventory control will provide a journal voucher that will be forwarded to the general ledger. Okay? And then, of course, i-update nila yung purchase requisition, no? Kung may mga need tayong i-close na open requisition or open purchase requisition. Okay? And of course, the stock release will be filed in the inventory control. Okay? Now, for the journal voucher coming from the billing, no, related sa accounts receivable, i-forward din nila. Now, the ledger copy, in order to update, no, the subsidiary ledger relating to the accounts receivable, no, the AR department should have a copy in order to update this one, tong SL ng accounts receivable. And an AR summary will be forwarded to the general ledger, and of course the ledger copy coming from the billing department will be filed in the department. Remember, filing the documents leaves audit trail. Okay? So, in the general ledger, there will be a three-way matching wherein there should be a match of the AR summary coming from the accounts receivable team, the journal voucher coming from the inventory control for the reduction in the inventory control, and possibly the recognition of the cost of goods sold, and the journal voucher coming from the billing department. If tally siya, then we will update the GL records accordingly. Okay? So, dapat ma-update yung GL. At the same time, this documents forwarded by the said departments or aforementioned departments will be filed in the department. So, it's really a long process, di ba? So, again, though they have updated the subsidiary ledger accordingly and provided journal voucher, AR summary, and journal voucher, ang assumption natin dapat equal sa general ledger. Pero that is not the case sometimes. Okay? That is why there is a reconciliation between the subsidiary ledger and the general ledger. Kasi it's possible na nag-update yung department without informing the general ledger. Or possibly, the general ledger already got the aforementioned the journal voucher, AR summary, but the source department haven't updated their subsidiary ledger. Pwede kasing ganun. Okay? So you see here the very long process of the order module. So we have here now the cash receipts. So now that we have sent the bill to the customer, now the customer will pay. Okay? So there are 5 departments involved. We have the mailroom, the cash receipts, the accounts receivable, the general ledger, and the controller. Iba pa yung controller. Okay? So, we start first with the customer. I assume you know how to read the flowchart, right? So, remember, this is a terminal symbol. Ito yung start. Okay? Within this department. It's a system flowchart, by the way. So, ito, si customer, he or she forwarded the check together with the remittance advice. Remember that the remittance advice during the process na nagsisend ng billing statement si billing department, meron yung naka-attach na remittance advice. The remittance advice is a turnaround document wherein it is a product of a billing department, and it's also a source document for the cash receipts department. So your remittance advice actually stating there the name of the customer, the modes of payment, the amount of outstanding balance, from the customer. So through the help of this remittance advice, once the customer paid it, madali yung pag account, kung kanino nanggaling yung payment. Okay? Now, in the mailroom, there should be a reconciliation of check with the remittance advice and prepare remittance list. So, meaning, at the end of the day, parang binabatch process siya, right? And, of course, the mailroom will create copies of remittance list and will be forwarded to different departments such as the cash receipt, such as the accounts receivable, and the controller. And the copies of the check and the remittance advice, definitely, it will be forwarded to the cash receipts department. Now, the cash receipts department will process the cash receipt, meaning dapat ina-update nila yung cash receipts journal. Okay, it's a special journal, remember. So, ito, database to. Okay, and now, of course, after recording the cash receipts journal, the department should prepare deposit slip, and together with the check, they should deposit it into the bank. And of course, after depositing it, once the deposit slip has been validated, together with the remittance advice, they should file copies of it in their department. And the cash receipts will forward a journal voucher saying we have recorded the payment in the cash receipts journal and will be forwarded to the general ledger. But before we go to the general ledger, we need to discuss the accounts receivable. Okay, remember that the accounts receivable received the remittance list and advice from the mailroom for them to update the subsidiary ledger relating to accounts receivable. Okay, so they should update this record. So remember, this is a reference file and this is a master file, that they should update this master file. Okay, and once they have updated this master file, these documents will be filed in their department, okay, for audit trail. Okay? So at the end of the day, no, batch processing, they will create what we call the account summary. It states there the list of payments, I mean the payments made by the customer, no, na-update. I mean, we prepare this list once we have already also updated this one, and it also will be forwarded to the general ledger. Now, with account summary coming from the account from the AR team, and the journal voucher coming from the mail room, ay sorry, from the cash receipts, kung sila ay equal, no, they will update the general ledger. And once they update the general ledger, this master file, we will now file these documents in the department. No, of course, the controller, no, within the accounting team, kasi yung controller accounting team yan. So kasama si general ledger, gagamitin ni controller yung copy, and of course from the validated deposit bank, no, and also together with the remittance list coming from the mailroom, magdi three-way matching siya to perform reconciliation of the deposit slip from the bank with the summary totals from the accounts receivable. Okay, so dito, and cash receipts, no, coming from the cash receipts and from the remittance list given by the mailroom. So kung pare-pareha sila, no, the controller will note no exception. Okay? So that is the cash receipt system. So remember, again, our process order to cash, starting from the customer order up until what? The receipt of the cash. And accordingly, we should update the general ledger. Okay? So now we go to the first subcomponent of the order to cash, what we call the pricing and discount policy. Okay? So, actually, to give you an idea, no, I'll read through this, no. Pricing should be driven by the organization's strategic and operational goals and is influenced by the market share, competition, prevailing economic conditions, estimates of the quantity demanded by the consumers, and price elasticity of demand. So in here you see there are a lot of factors that drives the pricing. Not only we are looking in the external environment, we are also looking in the internal environment. That is looking through the strategic and operational goals. So kung there is a very controlling external environment, at least on our part, we can do some control within our company by adjusting the strategic and operational goals. So, pwede namang there's, a right balance between the two. Na hindi naman tayo malulugi, hindi rin naman tayo, well, basically, ang end goal, ang mangyayari kasi nito, ang outcome nito, kung medyo mataas ang pressure sa external environment and konti lang yung control na pwede nating magawa sa ating goals, most likely we will have a lower profit, no? Pero most of the case naman hindi naman madalang lang mangyari yon, even during pandemic, though the some of the company really reduce their price, they are still sustainable or have sustainable operations. Na-influence tayo talaga ngayon ng pandemic. Okay? Of course, we are influenced given by the nature of the condition that we have, no? We can say na dahil bumababa yung price, medyo competitive talaga ngayon ang kalakaran, no? So mahirap talaga magbenta. So anong tendency, no? Talagang magbababa tayo ng presyo to have a higher market share. Okay? So inelastic demand indicates that price increase may be feasible, but the perception of value also play a key role in that analysis. So meaning, kahit inelastic yung demand, ibig sabihin even there is even a great movement in the price, hindi magbabago yung demand. So dahil doon, no, this still price can increase, no, possible naman yun, pero siguro minimal. Pero for us to really get the most out of it, no, yung value out of that price that we can set, no, we should make ensure that there are still controls in place. Okay, so we have the following control objectives for pricing and discount policy, no? Given the economic conditions, pwede tayong mag-set ng discount and pwede rin tayong mag-set ng pricing. Pwedeng mataas yung price pero the discount factor can make a pivotal role really in making the organization competitive. Kunwari, pineresyo mo yung baboy mo ng 500 pero if you buy in bulk, you can have a discount of 200 pesos if you buy 200 kilograms of the pork. So, yun yung mga pwede nating i-set dito in case of pricing and discount policy. Pero dapat, there should be control over it. Hindi pwede tayong, there's limitless. Limitless in terms of setting the discount. There should be a policy. Okay? So, we should have, a control to ensure, there should be control objectives, no, for us to ensure that pricing and discount structures are authorized and documented. At least, kung siya ay ni-state na natin sa documents natin, no, sa policy natin, at least yung magiging galaw ng CS department in terms of giving price or giving discount, may range na naka-document. Doon lang sila pwedeng gumalaw. Okay? Also, the control objective is to ensure that pricing levels are competitive, profitable, and adequately cover the underlying cost. So, ito yung isa rin natin dapat i-consider. Kaya tayo nagsaset ng policy is to make sure that the cost should not exceed the revenue. Baka kasi mamaya nagbebenta tayo ng palugi. Remember, we have a concept of break-even. Even though we can set the break-even in units, of course, any business don't want to produce and sell items at break-even. Dapat profitable naman at least, di ba? Okay? For us to have or provide good returns to our stakeholders. Okay? Control objectives also include to ensure that an awareness of market trends, competitor pricing, etc. is maintained to enable the appropriate commercial response. Okay? Fourth, also to ensure that authorized price and discounts are correctly applied to invoices. So, minsan iba yung representation natin. Sabi natin may discount tayong 50 pesos for each 500. Now, pagdating sa invoice, bakit iba? So, there should be also policy in place. Okay? Or procedure in place. Okay? We should also have here to ensure that changes to prices and discounts are authorized and correctly implemented. So, not all prices and discounts are, dapat controlled ng isang tao. No, even the smallest, depending on the policy, there can be a range wherein it will not require authorization. However, kung malaki ang discount na ibibigay, as much as possible, we would want to put there an authorization to make sure that the discounts that we are giving is not detrimental to the organization. Kasi pwede naman tayo magbigay ng malaking discount, lalo na kung bulk yung bibili, pang maramihan or pang wholesale. At lalo na if we have established a good relationship with that customer. Okay? Also, to ensure that the accurate and reliable records of cost are maintained in support of determining the pricing policy. So, ito, hindi talaga mawawala. We need to have a record. So, remember that we are recording the accumulation of cost, diba, in cost accounting. So, the cost accounting really help us in doing pricing policy. Remember that. Okay? Of course, we don't want to price our, we don't want to price our products without even knowing the cost structure or the cost components of each product. So, dapat alam natin yung total manufacturing cost. So, we should consider that. Okay? Also, we have here to provide adequate costing information as a means of identifying the potential for cost saving. So aside from knowing the cost itself or knowing the costing information, we can also make some cost saving. Diba? Remember, in standard costing, we can have favorable variances kasi it's possible that we have obtained materials or labor that are much cheaper but without any without compromising really the quality or the value that we can give to our customers. Okay? Another control objective is to ensure that the effects of taxation and importation duty, no, are taken into account when setting the prices. Of course, we should consider the tax, no, particularly the VAT. Now remember, the VAT is passed to our customers. So yung burden nasa kanila. So dapat tignan natin if our pricing, no, if you consider the tax, if it is too much to our customer. Okay? So aside from knowing the cost, you should know also the VAT, no, or the sales tax that you can impose or put above the price or the gross price of the product. Remember that we are billing the customer above, the price plus the VAT. So dapat we should consider the effect of the taxation kasi we are selling it gross of tax. Baka mamaya hindi pa natin na-consider yung tax, masyadong mahal sa customer yung price of the product. Okay? Another control objective is to ensure, when applicable, no, geographic differentials and the effects of cyclical sales pattern are taken into account when determining variations to the pricing policy. So remember, dito naman sa Pilipinas, no, there are some products na medyo may cyclical sales pattern, no, pwede ring seasonal. Yung seasonal, okay lang, ano siya, madali mo siyang ma-predict, no? While cyclical, the cyclical means it can have a pattern na visible for more than a year. Okay? So, kunwari, ngayong pandemic, there's a cyclical pattern. Malakas ang, ang Food Panda. Of course, hindi yan laging nandyan yung pandemic. Might possibly after a year or 2 years, mawala na yung pandemic. So, possibly yung Food Panda, yung GrabFood, no, particularly that business model, no, baka hindi na sila kumita ng kasing laki ngayon versus in the future years. Okay. So, yun, we should also consider that in our pricing policy. Ito ang sinasabi ko lang ha, pandemic is really tawag ito, it's really an unforeseen event. No? Pero ang sinasabi lang natin dito, kung may mga cyclical sales pattern tayo na kunwari, alam mo na every other year magkakaroon ng Winter Olympics, then you should consider the pricing policy of selling your medals in Japan, okay, yung mga tipo ganun, or in other countries, no. Possible kasi mangyari lang siya once in a lifetime. Okay? Also, we need to ensure here that the pricing structure accord with the relevant distributor, agent, retailer, chain, and are competitive at each stage. So, kung meron kang agents or intermediaries before the end user, you should also consider your pricing structure. Parang ganito lang yan, no? Alam natin na pag binebenta ang MacBook, mahal. Kasi bakit? Binebenta to kasi na, kunwari, yung MacBook ngayon, it is now sold at 76,000, no? For some certain specification, no? Hindi ko na i-mention. Pero, kung ikaw ay bibili mismo sa Apple, mas mura mo siyang mabibili. Let's say, for example, 60K. So, what is causing the price differential? It is because of the price na pinapatong ni distributor, ni agent, and retailer. Of course, there are distributor kasi, of course, baka may mga lugar na remote, and sila lang yung pwedeng makabenta, and sila lang yung easily accessible na market for that kind of product. But if you are in the metro, or near the manufacturing sites of this product, then you might want to really buy this product in the manufacturing site. Okay? Kung nasa China ka, baka mabili mo siya ng mura. Kasi, di ba, remember, yung Apple is manufactured in China. Tama ba? Yun yung naalala ko. Okay? So, if you're pricing it, you should also consider, again, the distributor or any intermediaries between you as the manufacturer and the end user or the customer. Okay? We should also ensure that the government, the national, and the international pricing restrictions are taken into account when applicable, lalo na if there are any tariffs. Okay? Remember that tariffs, no, in economics, it really hinders, having your product, if siya ay import, to be sold at a lower price. Kasi the purpose of the tariff is to really protect the local suppliers of this product. So yun, no, titingnan mo yung mga pricing restrictions na yun. Lalo na kung nagbebenta ka sa Pilipinas, may tariffs tayo pagdating sa mga produktong binebenta natin, binebenta. Okay? Okay? So hopefully naintindihan niyo ako. Okay? So after discussing the control objectives, so what are the typical controls for the pricing and discount policy? Okay, so in here, again, sinabi ko na to, pricing and discount policies are or should be documented, authorized, and implemented consistently. So meaning, kung ano yung nasa invoices, dapat it is accordingly nakastate sa ating policy na nakadocument. And if ever malaki yung ating discount na ibibigay, no, or ayun nga, pricing, yung discount na ibibigay, it should be authorized by a person who's really authorized to approve it. Okay? Second, management maintains an accurate awareness of market trends and competitor prices as determinants of pricing policy. Of course, if you want to craft your pricing policy, dapat you have a basis of comparing it also with your competitor and what are the market trends. You don't want your prices na dahil hindi ka tumitingin sa prices ng competitor mo, nag-price ka ng above your competitor, most likely you will be at a disadvantaged position. Most likely yung market share mo bababa. Unless you have that kind of value proposition na tinatawag natin sa marketing, that the customer will really pay for that kind of expensive price. Let's say for example, ang basis ko si Apple. Kasi syempre si Apple, guys, no, mahal talaga mo siya binibili. Of course, there are some competitors si Apple like Samsung, Oppo, na relatively mas mura. Tama, 'di ba? So, the mere fact that it is Apple, the premium that you are paying with the brand together with, of course, with the features, no, added features, binabayaran natin yun above doon sa mga competitor price. Kasi alam natin, we have that kind of parang perspective na alam natin pag Apple, this is very premium, kumbaga superior as compared to other products. So ganun, we are paying that premium or yung added cost or price as compared to the other competitors for the value that we are getting. Okay? So next, required profit, price, and quantity of returns are determined with the input of subject matter experts, market information, and accurate company data. So, ito yung sinasabi natin, dapat yung pricing natin and all of the related information that could affect the pricing policy, even the quantity of returns and profit, dapat meron talaga tayong information over that. Okay? Particularly, maganda kung it is an external information or coming from really an expert or SME who has a knowledge about the strategy, pricing strategy, the current market price that are available, no? For us to really know nasaan yung natin. Nasaan where is the position of the company's product prices as compared to other competitors. Okay, at least it could be a good basis for us to really dictate the price that we can set. Okay? The next control will be value ranges, access, and data transfer controls. Make sure that price and discount amounts are within the acceptable limits, authorized by the appropriate individuals, and are captured accurately in financial and operational reports. So, for the purposes of tracing it and reviewing it, no, lalo na sa internal auditor, no, and for the sake also of the management, yun yung sinasabi ko, dapat meron tayong range of possible pricing or discounts that we can give to our customer. And dapat talaga it is again documented. If it's documented, it should state who are the people who can approve for this kind of discounts that are beyond this limit, no? Ibig sabihin, may level of approvals, no? Kunwari, palaki ng palaki yung amount ng ating discount na ibibigay. Pwede naman tayo magbigay, no? Kasi baka again, we are considering the quantity or the volume of the products we are selling. Okay? And definitely any discounts given to the customer, it should be reflected into the books, no, for us to assess it and tingnan natin kung talaga bang accurately na capture din yung yun, no, sa financial and operational reports. Okay. Next, process controls ensures that mathematical accuracy of cost, pricing, and billing information. So again, any controls within the process, no, that particularly on the pricing and discount policy, dapat ensure natin na accurate or tama yung makukuha nating cost, pricing, and billing information. Kumbaga tama yung maka-capture niya and tama yung mechanism niya on how to accumulate cost, what is the pricing strategy or concept that we can, yung in-adopt ni organization for them to price it above the cost. Okay? And nasusunod ba yung sa billing information? So, dapat may process controls over that. Okay? Also, system interfaces make sure that the data input and output from other systems such as product costing are accurate. So, when I say system interface, may dalawa tayong application na they are not connected to each other. And the way we can only have them connected is through the data that we can feed from one system to another. So the output of one system that will be needed for the input of another system, dapat sa accurate yung ating makukuha information from the source up until i-feed siya doon sa ating next system. No, dapat may mechanism involved din or controls involved. Okay? So lastly, the typical control will be segregation of duties or SOD if in place to protect sensitive pricing information from unauthorized access. So dapat kasi guys, yung pricing information natin, no, on how the way we really the management they price their products or costing, dapat only people who have unauthorized access over that information yung meron lang, yung dapat lang maka-access nun. Okay, so dapat may segregation of duties na involved. Okay, so ibig sabihin, may system na pwedeng mag-handle or person who can handle this sensitive pricing information kasi confidential nga kung sakasakali, no, lalo na kung yung product is not yet in the market, we don't want it to be disclosed kasi nga wala pang public announcement yung company. So dapat yung information na yon handled lang ng system or person involved, and dapat only authorized personnel can only access this information. Okay? So most likely ang may access sa pricing information yung management. Okay? So dapat yung mga employees who are not relevant to their task about knowing the pricing information, dapat hindi sila kasama doon. Okay? For the next one, what are the key risks for pricing and discount policy? So, of course, meron tayong mga risk involved in these policies, no? One is that price and discounts make products or services uncompetitive or unprofitable. Definitely, isa tong risk. Kasi baka mamaya sa sobrang laki na ng discount na binibigay natin, no? Baka naman mamaya unprofitable na siya in a way na yung dapat profit niya naging loss na. Kasi we are giving much discounts. Now, kung ang discount naman natin ay not, I mean, very, malit lang yung range na pwede natin bigyan ng discount, baka may uncompetitive naman tayo kasi we are giving our customers the products with prices that are above its competitors. So, yun yung risk natin dito. Kaya nga dapat pinag-iisipan talagang maigi yung policy na dapat ilagay with the prices and discounts. Okay? Next, prices and related sales projection are unrealistic. Okay? So, baka mamaya naman, again, ito siguro pwede nating sabihin na new to the market yung isang nating product, and then yung pag-price natin, since kinikater natin ay mass people, no? Meaning class C, D, E, kunwari lang, no? However, we price it based from the financial profile of class A and B. Would you think your target market would buy your product? So, yun, unrealistic yung prices natin. Sometimes yung sales projection, kasi lalo na if we are planning to achieve this revenue, pero hindi naman pasok sa target market yung presyo, isa rin yun. Okay, so maring mataas yung sales volume na pinoproject natin pero hindi natin kaya kasi nga possibly iba yung target market na kinikater natin versus doon sa dapat nakakakuha ng product. So dapat there is an alignment or connect as to who is really the target market of this product and what accordingly will be the price that you can set or give to them. Okay? Third, prices and discounts are applied incorrectly. So ito yung siguro ito more on error na lang or misunderstanding na based from the policy and policy relating to prices and discounts. May mga category and mali yung application ng pag-compute ng pagpatong ng profit to determine the price of that product. Ayun, of course it has repercussion, no? Of course, yung reputation, sabi nila, baka sa sobrang mura ng product, napababa nila yung value tuloy ng mga product nun sa industry. Of course, it will affect also your competitors as well. So, dapat talaga, kahit pa paano, kung you are pricing it, dapat you consider really your competitors, no? Pero dito, pwede kasing apply incorrectly, mali lang yung pagkakapili. So, dapat talaga may another level of check or authorization before the price can be published to the public. Okay? Also, excessive and unauthorized prices and discounts are applied. So, excessive, sabi ko nga, pag sobra yung pagpresyo sa ating produkto, maaaring hindi na very competitive yung price natin as compared to our competitors. So, it will have an effect on our bottom line figure, the profit. Okay? So, last risk, no? Individuals and organizations use proprietary information inappropriately. When you say proprietary information, these are information within the organization, no? Own nila. Okay? So, dapat, no, yung information na yun, dapat they use it accordingly kung ano dapat yung paggagamitin nila. Let's say, for example, the pricing information, this should only be accessible, again, to the people who are doing the task relevant to the pricing strategy of the organization. Okay? Pwede rin sabihin natin dito, no? Alam na natin yung presyo ng produkto na ibebenta natin in the market, tinimbrihan mo or binigyan mo ng idea yung ating competitor, so sila binaba nila. So, sinong malulugi? Of course, the organization. Of course, they set it at a price that is really competitive, pero binabaan pa ng competitor. Sinong matatalo? Tayo. In the short run, talo tayo. In the long run, of course, yung competitor natin, lalo na kung kilala yung brand na yun and product, pwede nilang ibaba for a certain period of time just to make sure yung yung new entrant or yung new player in the industry will not be sustainable. So, pwedeng ganun. Kaya nga dapat ang information nandun lang sa authorized personnel who has the custody and of course the person who can have an access to that information. Okay? So, what are the key issues relating to pricing and discount policy? So, ito, usually, these questions, no, lalo na we are tackling key issues and detailed issues, it will be helpful for you to evaluate, no, kung ano yung mga current issues na meron ng isang organization. Then you can uh, eventually consider it in doing or crafting your audit procedures na pwede mong tignan in doing the fieldwork or audit fieldwork. So number one question, have documented pricing and discount policies been authorized and implemented? No? And are they based on established profit margins? So dapat yung documentation natin or yung policy natin dapat talaga it has an approval of an appropriate committee, no? Kung sino man yung committee na na assign in the pricing and discount policy, dapat may approval nila, and once it has an approval, it should be implemented. Dapat yon ay aside from having an authorization, dapat na implement yun sa pag-set natin ng pricing. Second, what steps are taken to ensure that prices remain competitive, profitable, and sustainable? So, in here, most likely, you dapat may makikita kang, of course, it is based on the policy. And dapat there is a, competitor information analysis. Titingnan mo kung it's really competitive in a way na hindi nalalay sa presyo ng competitor mo. Doon natin siya masasabing competitive. And profitable in terms of the return that it provides, no, yung product na binebenta natin, kung it will give you profit, and in the long run sustainable if it will cover other fixed costs, pwedeng ganun. Okay, and pwedeng natin consider natin yung product life cycle, no, kung nasaan siya. So kung merong mga ganung mechanism, definitely it's not really an issue. If there is, then definitely issue 'yan. Okay? So yun lang yung kailangan, yung ibig sabihin natin sa mga questions na to. If it is there's no problem, there are controls in place and the risks are manageable or can be managed, definitely is not an issue. Okay? Third question, how the management assured that the correct prices and discounts are always applied to the invoices, and what mechanisms are in place to detect and report any unauthorized variation? So usually naman nasa system naman may kita natin, no, and we can do some checks, no, kung may ginagawang evaluation or assessment yung management to ensure that the prices and discounts are applied to the invoice in accordance with the policy. Okay, so yung pag-detect and report dapat at the user level, no, ibig sabihin yung naggagawa ng invoice, no, pwede mong i-check, no, kung may checking na ginagawa or checklist na ginagawa, no, or check sheet rather, kung fina-follow kung ano yung pricing set policy natin, no, kung sinusunod ba yon, no. For sure meron dapat yung mechanism na may check sheet siya na fina-follow niya ba yung policy. If may ganung mechanism, then it's not an issue. Okay? Fourth question, how does management confirm that product costing information is accurate, complete, and reliable as the basis for determining prices? So, how can management confirm? So, usually may mga board meeting, no, pwede natin confirm doon yung product costing, ipapakita yung cost structure ng bawat product, no. Kung may ganun, kung accurate siya, meaning there is really a good process in a way na yung pag-accumulate natin ng cost and yung pag account natin or even assigning the cost to the cost object. Kung merong ganong mechanism, the management would be in a position na they are confident na meron talaga tayong source of basing our prices, no? Kasi kung walang cost information or product costing information, paano nagpa-price si organization? So dapat merong mechanism na before a certain department or the management really set prices for this product, no, dapat may basis. If there's a basis, most likely, no, your pricing is really accurate, complete, and reliable in accordance with the set pricing and discount policies. Okay? So, for the fifth question, what measures ensure that changes to prices and discount structure are justified, authorized, and correctly applied? So, what measures ensure, no? Let's say, for example, tingnan natin sa board approval or board committee approval about the any increase or decreases in the prices. Kung merong ganun, then definitely there is justification during its deliberation sa board meeting, and most likely authorized to and correctly applied kung may approval ng board. Okay? So, last question, does management take into account the effects of taxation, duty, or importation duty, and any prevailing price constraints when determining the price level? So, dapat meron din tayong, before we set really the pricing of that product, again, the management should also consider yung tax, yung effect ng tax, the import duties, lalo na kung if the raw materials are imported, no, from other countries, and kung may mga price constraints, lalo na if we are exporting it to another country wherein there are tariffs, no. So dapat i-consider din yon. So dapat it is also documented, dapat kasama yon sa paper wherein nandun dapat yung taking into consideration again, yung product costing information, no, yung consideration ng tax, importation duties, and tariffs kung meron. So, dapat nandun yung sa paper and properly approved to. Okay, kung wala ka naman nakitang issue dito, no, lalo na kung may mga controls in place, then there are no issues. If there are any, kunwari, walang mechanism to check really na kinonsider yung product costing in setting the price, or hindi consider yung taxation, importation duties, or pricing constraints, then most likely is an issue. Kasi meron yung bearing sa ating profitability in the organization. Okay? Then, we also have detailed issues for pricing and discount policy that is in relation doon sa ating mga key issues. So, for the first question, no, how does management ensure that the most appropriate form of product costing is applied? Okay? So, nandun din yun sa policy. Okay? Second, how does management maintain an accurate awareness of market trend, competitor prices, etc. as determinants of pricing policy? Most likely nasa board meeting to, no? Nasa minutes of the meeting rather. So dapat makikita mo doon yung yung awareness nila kung naandun ba yung tinitingnan nila yung the current pricing in the market, no? And also its competitors. Kasi remember, dapat determinant yun sa pricing policy natin. Lalo na that the price would rather come from our competitors. Next, are the required profit levels and returns realistically established? So, based from the discount na pwede nating ibigay, dapat realistic din yung mga profit levels natin. Baka mamaya, tawag dito, yung binigay natin discount in order to us to have a sale, baka mamaya hindi na talaga realistic yung profit natin, na tipong naging loss na. Okay, kasi ganun yung sinet natin. Kaya, dahil wala kasi siguro tayong sinet na policy, or pwedeng sobrang liit naman yung discount, yung returns natin, medyo hirap talaga siyang i-realize kasi nga, mahal yung ating pricing as compared to the competitors. Okay? Next question, what processes link the individual customers to the correct pricing and discount structure to ensure that accurate calculation of invoices? So, dapat meron tayong classification or category of customers on what discounts can we give to them. Most likely, pag mga customers or recurring customers, we can give them big discounts, lalo na kung marami silang binibili. Pero kung itong mga customer na to ay minsan lang naman bumili, then we can give them a right amount of discount that is commensurate to the number or the volume that they are buying to the organization. Okay? So, dapat may ganun, no? May mechanism na kina-classify. Okay? So, next, what parameters govern the eligibility for discounts and what mechanisms ensure that they are correctly applied? So, eto, kung mga discounts, for sure, may mga, may mga discounts na tayo pwedeng ibigay based on the volume. So, dapat may mga parameters. Let's say, for example, we will give you 2% discount if you buy 1,000 units and above. But if you go 10,000, we will give you 10%. And if you go beyond 50,000, we'll give you 20% discount. So, dapat may parameter that would govern the eligibility of the discount. Yun yung ibig nating sabihin dito. And pwede natin i-check sa mga invoices kung correctly ba na-apply din to. If wala namang nakitang exception, so it's not really an issue. Okay? Next question, what steps are taken to protect commercially sensitive pricing information from unauthorized access and leakage? So most likely, what steps are taken possibly dapat may mga access controls na in place. So meaning pwedeng tao lang yung mismong trusted person lang yung pwedeng makahawak ng ganung information, and kung sa system dapat may controls in place, yung may mga access controls, and kung sino lang may access, kung sino lang yung authorized person to have an access to that information. Okay, ulit-ulit ako, no? So for the last question, does management take into account the potential for geographic differentiation in pricing policy, and if so, what assurance are there that the variations are correctly applied to invoices? Lalo na kung when we say geographic differentiation, of course, kunwari, kung tayo expert ng export ng mga products, so kada country, bibigyan natin ng iba't ibang price. And we consider, of course, the economy, no, the buying habit, no, the disposable income of these customers in this country. So dapat it should be in a way affordable to them, no? Sa atin dapat, no, kung nagbebenta ng products yung US, dapat kung sila yung nag-i-import sa nag-export sa atin, dapat yung presyo would be reasonable for us to really buy that product. Hindi pwedeng yung presyo sa Amerika, presyo rin sa atin. Pero sa ngayon kasi parang nakikita natin mas mura yung presyo sa Amerika kaysa sa atin, 'di ba? Kasi nga sa atin, pagdating sa atin, maraming patong na. May patong ang Bureau of Customs for their import duties, may patong ang distributor, may patong ang retailer. Kaya mahal na pagdating sa atin. Pero may mga iba na mas mahal talaga sa ibang bansa, pero pag nandito sa atin, mura. Let's say for example, the exams, no? Let's say for example, yung mga registration for exams, mas mura sa mga country like for us in the Philippines. Kung titingnan natin yung CMA, no, yung mga certifications like CEIA, mas mura sa Pilipinas if you become a member as compared if you're going to register as a member in that organization also, pero sa ibang jurisdiction. Let's say for example sa US, mas mahal ang membership ng US as compared sa Pilipinas. Sa Pilipinas kasi ang membership ng IAE it's 2-3, while for US it's more than 7K. So dapat there is a policy also with regard to setting prices for different geographical locations. So how can we ensure or what are the assurance that the variations are correctly applied to invoices? By checking the policy also kung meron, and to make sure kung talaga bang na-implement, then we can have a sample of invoices, no, to these customers that are residing in these countries to check if the policy are being applied, no? Okay, so that is for the pricing and discount policy. So the next portion of the order to cash is what we call the order processing. So remember guys, yung order processing, 'di ba? It's a process that is triggered by the customer's order. And then all the way up until yung pag-recognize natin ng accounts receivable and sales sa ating accounts, and also together with the inventory and cost of goods sold. Okay, so yun, ito yung inclusion ng ating order processing. So what are the control objectives that is for the order processing? So first is to ensure that all valid orders are correctly identified, accounted for, and processed in accordance with the organization's policies and procedures. So ibig nating sabihin dito, dapat yung mga orders lang within the credit limits of the customer should only be processed. So, ibig natin sabihin to, remember na dapat yung mga i-grant natin na customer orders is really within the credit limits of the customer. If that is the case, and of course, if there are any other conditions, dapat that is in a line or in accordance with the policies and procedures of order processing. Okay. Next, to ensure that the official orders are accepted only from a bona fide, authorized, and suitable customers. So, may tinatawag tayo guys na list of customers. Kasi before we can fulfill the orders of the customer, no, or even before we can accept, dapat only those we have business relationship we can give, or provide products to that customer, no? Okay lang naman siguro kung new customer, pero only make sure that your customers are, really suitable for the organization, meaning you have this credit department to check if that customer, if ever you'll be giving them or granting them tawag dito, credit for their orders, dapat i-make sure na okay yung kanilang financial statement, yung mga ratios, di ba? Usually, ganun yun yung pag-assess. They have the sufficient cash based from their financial statement. So, yun, tinitingnan nyo ng organization before they can become really a bona fide customer. Okay? So, once that they are a bona fide customer, no? Ibig sabihin, they are approved for any granting of credit, then we can accept orders from that's the time we can only accept official orders. If not, no, kung di pa sila customer, kailangan mo nang establish yung identity ni customer and their financial profile as well. Okay? Second, of course, one of the control objective is to ensure that orders are accepted only for credit-worthy customer with sufficient available credit limits. That is in relation to the control objectives ng bullet number 1 and 2. So, dapat credit-worthy customer. So, dapat kapag sila ay o-order, we can only accept orders if the amount stated there is within the available credit limits. No? Kunwari, 10,000 yung credit limit nila, and then out of the 20,000 na authorized, no, 10,000 na kasi nagamit nila, so may 10,000 pa silang available credit limit, yung kanilang order is worth 8,000, then we can accept that order. No, if that is beyond the credit limit, no, generally dapat hindi. Kasi kunwari 12,000 yung order ng customer, that is beyond the available credit limit, then we are going to, let the order be in the open customer order. If they have paid the outstanding due, then most likely yung open customer order, i-retrieve natin, then we can fulfill the customer's order or accept the customer's order. Okay? The fourth one, we can also make to ensure that new customers are properly assessed and authorized for setup with an appropriate credit limit. So, at yung sinasabi ko, no, of course, if you want that new customer to be a bona fide, authorized, and suitable customer, we must make sure that there are also policy to assess the credit worthiness of this customer based on their submitted requirements, such as yung mga articles of incorporation, bylaws, no, the latest financial statement, so that we can accordingly set up the appropriate credit limit of that customer. Okay. Another, we have here that to ensure that the determination and amendment of credit limits is appropriately authorized. So, pwede naman talaga nating increase yung credit limit. If ever, it will depend on many factors. It will depend sa organization. Lalo na kung lagi siyang recurring, laging umu-order, and then maganda yung kanyang payment record, then definitely we can amend its credit limit. We can expand their credit limit or increase their credit limit. Okay? Next, to ensure that the effective credit control is exercised to ensure that the customer's accounts are promptly followed up and payments obtained. So, dapat may credit control. So, pwede siguro natin iset example as a credit control is the aging of accounts receivable. So, kunwari, beyond na sila doon sa ating credit terms, or kunwari, malapit na sila doon sa outstanding due, no? Sa date na kung kailan dapat sila magbayad, then pwede tayo mag-set ng policy that 1 week before the due is ang tawag doon magpa-pass due, we can set terms na we can have a follow-up or we can make follow-up of them regarding their payment. Okay? So, kunwari, pag wala na talaga, pag beyond na doon sa credit terms na nasabi, so nag-pass due na siya, so we can also have a credit control. Kunwari, we can have this accounts receivable be factored by the bank, no? Pwede nating ibenta yung AR. So, at least, we can manage really our cash kasi kailangan din talaga ng organization ng cash. Okay? Okay? Next, to ensure that all order details are accurately captured, no, for subsequent processing purposes. So, ibig natin sabihin dito, no, kung nag-order si customer, so dapat do sa customer order, kompleto lahat ng information na hinihingi. Kasi, of course, kung may kulang doon sa information, may issue as to its completeness, baka mamaya yung some of the information will be crucial or will be required, no, in further processing. Now, let's say, for example, yung amount dapat nakalagay doon kung magkano yung total amount na ng i-orderin nila. Of course, that will be helpful in the credit limit. Okay? Of course, with the address, dapat nakalagay din for the shipping. So, it's very important that all order details are accurately captured. Kung hindi, dapat ma-capture lahat ng information. There should be a mechanism in the, possibly, no, kung naka-EDA siya or what you call this, electronic data interchange, dapat may mga required fields na fill outan doon ang customer. Okay? Para hindi tayo magka-problema during the processing of the order. Then, we should also ensure that all affected functions are coordinated so that the order is promptly and efficiently fulfilled. So, tulad sa flowchart na kita natin kanina, dapat lahat ng functions are coordinated very well. Meaning, dapat yung mga documents, once they process it, tapos na sa kanila yung pagproseso, eventually dapat i-forward nila yon sa mga departments na kailangan yung document to start their process in accordance to that order. Let's say, for example, yung shipping department, di ba, remember, dapat, bago nila i-ship yung document, dapat may attach na document na coming from the sales department about the copy of the customer order, and then dapat merong shipping notice, no? Dapat nakasama yon, yung mga tipong ganun before it can be provided or given to the carrier. Okay? So, and dapat may shipping advice, no? Dapat kompleto. The same goes for the accounts receivable. Dapat before they record the accounts receivable, dapat nandun sa kanila din yung shipping notice, advice, dapat nandun yung customer order, yung stock release, to make sure na those documents, if completed na, then we can now record it in the books. Dapat properly coordinated talaga. Okay? So, the next one, no? To ensure that orders are promptly and accurately acknowledged. Okay? So, dapat when we receive the order, we should acknowledge the customer that we have received the order. Okay? And of course, kung na-deliver na natin yung order, so dapat we can send now the goods, no, through the carrier, send the billing statement. Yun, most likely mo ko-confirm talaga na magiging close order na siya. Okay? Or closed customer order. Okay? Next, to ensure that delivery and any other special customer requirements are identified and appropriately addressed. Okay, so kung may mga kunwari, delivery terms na gusto si customer, no, it will depend kung anong shipping tawag doon, let's say for example, yun nga, kung siya ay free onboard shipping point or destination, or pwedeng freight collect, no, yung mga ganung delivery terms, no, so dapat kino-consider din yon, and dapat naka-capture yon, and eventually dapat nasa terms din yon, no, ng ating delivery, no, kasi kung hindi, of course, sinong kawawa, of course, the organization. So dapat na-identify yun and appropriately na-address, no, ibig sabihin hanggang shipping, dala-dala yung information na kung yung piniling arrangement or shipping arrangement ni customer. Okay, next, to ensure that all orders are promptly fulfilled, delivered, and confirmed as received. So, dapat, yung pag-confirm ng as received, dapat by the time na binigay natin sa carrier yon, no, kung siya ay FOB shipping point, remember that during those times na binigay natin sa carrier, the risk and the ownership, it is now transferred to the owner, or to the, not really to the owner, but rather to the buyer. Okay, so dapat may confirmation from the what do you call this, the carrier. Now, kung destination point siya, the risk and the ownership of the inventory will be passed on to the buyer once it now dumating na sa point of origin, kung nasaan, ay point of destination kung nasaan si customer or si buyer. Okay, so confirm as received na yon. Okay, so yon, dapat may ganong documentation na may receipt ng inventory. Okay? To ensure that invoices are raised against all fulfilled orders and accounted for within the accounts receivable systems and accounts. So, ito more likely dapat meron talaga tayong mechanism to check if these invoices are really all, I mean, caters all the fulfilled orders. Kasi baka mamaya may mga invoices na wala naman talagang fulfilled order, then that is a control deficiency. So, dapat make sure that all invoices may corresponding fulfilled orders. No? So, we are going to vouch. Okay? Also, we need to ensure that the correct terms, prices, and discounts are reflected on subsequent invoices. So, when we say subsequent invoices, so sa order, dapat yung sa invoice naka-reflect doon kung ano yung credit terms, no, based na established ng organization, no, if possible na yung credit limit na available, no, yung prices kung magkano, and the discounts dapat na andun yun sa mga invoices, to make sure that the customer is informed of the price and the discounts na napag-usapan. Okay? Next, to ensure that the key data such as the product prices, the order records are adequately protected from unauthorized access and amendment. So, yun yung iniwasan natin, of course. Dapat any key data within that document, dapat hindi napapalitan, lalo na if it is, we have a system, what we call the electronic data interchange, wherein nakaset na doon sa record natin yung mga prices and order records. Dapat walang nakaka-access noon other than the process owner. Okay? And dapat wala nakakapag-change noon. Kasi if it is amendable, it can be changed, no? Possibly, baka magkaroon ng discrepancy, and of course, baka magkaroon ng, ineffective segregation of duty. Kasi nga, yung may custody, may access sa records, mahirap yon, no? Pwedeng magkaroon ng fraud. Okay? Next, to ensure that the export orders are handled in accordance with all prevailing regulations. So, yung mga export orders natin, no, dapat may nagre-regulate niyan, and dapat yung mga rules and regulations set by it, no, dapat sinusunod. Let's say, for example, we have what we call the export processing zones in the Philippines, wherein they enjoy tax incentive. So, let's say for example, 0% tax sila, 0% VAT sila. So, dapat in order for them to enjoy, they should follow some of the requirements set by the BIR and PEZA. Okay? So, dapat kung may mga conditions, dapat they should act accordingly sa na-set na rules and regulation. Okay? Also, no, last na to ensure that all the current laws and regulations are correctly and fully observed. So, just parang katulad din siya with the last, second to the last bullet. Pero this time, not only the export, any transactions, no, for order processing, dapat it follows the current laws and regulation. Okay?